Good morning. Welcome to the Paul Green Comedy Podcast. It is April 4th, 2024. This is episode 127, the last of the Vegas episodes, at least for the time being. And I had so much fun in Vegas this week. And last night, which as you can tell is now, I didn't end up doing what I thought I was going to do, which was maybe try to head up another open mic. I ended up having a lot of work to get done. And what I realized is that there was an actual comedy club in my hotel/resort/casino, which I am staying at the Rio. If you see these little neon vertical stripes right here. It's all part of Rio. And they have the Comedy Cellar, which for all of you comedy nerds out there, the Comedy Cellar is, of course, the iconic New York comedy club. And they have a franchise here in Las Vegas. And it just happens to be at the hotel that I'm staying at, which I didn't even know that when I booked my hotel room. So it was just right downstairs. And so I decided to go check out the show at the Comedy Cellar. And it was really, really good. I think there were only 5 comics on the lineup. Felt like maybe 5 that all did maybe 15 minutes each. And it was funny because I went solo and I ended up getting sat in the front row, which, as you know, anybody who goes to a comedy show, if you're in the front row, there's a high probability that the comics are going to interact with you or try to riff with you or crowd work with you, which as a comedian, I don't particularly like doing that because I don't know, because I know what they're doing and I don't know. I have a tendency to want to kind of riff back and I can riff back because I'm also a stand-up comedian. But because I was solo, they ended up putting me in the front row because I went to the later show and I guess they didn't sell any of their VIP special seating, which was all that first row. And so they're like, oh, we'll just give you VIP seating since you're, by yourself. And so I was sitting by myself in the front row, which is even worse. But I sat off to the side of the stage, so at least I wouldn't be directly in front of all the comics. But 3 of the 5 comics did at least address me, although not a whole lot. They the host, who was really funny, I am going to forget his name. Very Jewish. I think his last name was Cohen. And when I was looking at the lineup online, I did some research, and it just seems like this guy has just been in the comedy game for decades and decades and decades, and closely associated with the Comedy Cellar as well. Back in New York, it now looks like, he's sort of a regular at the Vegas Comedy Club. And, yeah, he was just one of those, you can tell he's just been doing it for a long time. Great energy, so fun. A little more on the jokey side, almost intentionally, and did a lot of crowd work and did a lot of all right, who's from out of town? Who's from out of the country? And, oh, you guys, what are you up to? What do you do for work? Like all that sort of stuff. But you could tell that he had pre-written jokes for almost anything that anybody could say. Somebody said they were from Texas and he immediately went oh, well, that's fine. We have metal detectors or something like that. Just sort of those, he just tell he's been doing it his whole life and was really funny, really silly, good energy. So I had a lot of fun with him. He did address me briefly because there was somebody in the front row from Australia, somebody in the front row from Sweden, and then he said, "Anybody else from out of the country?" And he said, "How about you? Are you from a different country?" And I said, "Phoenix." And then he totally left it alone. He didn't. I don't know. He didn't really, because obviously the audience laughed at that. They left it meh. And then the next comic to come up was a man. I think they said his name was Jeff Richards. Is that his name? And they said he was on SNL. I didn't recognize him, so it could have been maybe he was either a writer on SNL or, maybe never quite got up to like past the featured spot or something like that. He was really, really funny. Really fun act outs. He did a whole thing about nature documentaries, and whoever that narrator is, he just said he's so dramatic. On the snow pigeon. He was really funny. And he also tried to riff with me a little bit and then asked what I did. And I just said, well, I'm a comedian. And he said, well, do you want to come up and finish my set or something like that, which I thought was a fun, quick retort. But as soon as I said I was a comedian, he was like done with me. He was like, oh, I'm not going to try to crowd work this guy. But I LOL'd a lot at his set. It was actually really fun. I don't know. I think as a comedian, I get a little snobbish, and I will actually only go pay money to see stand-up comedians if it's like somebody really famous or like somebody like that. And so to be able to like go and see a comedy show with really talented, funny comedians who've obviously been doing it a long time and are funny enough to be performing at the Comedy Cellar in Las Vegas, but maybe aren't, famous headliners, was really cool. So anyway, so he came out, and then another gentleman came out who had it sounded like a stage name. It was like Eagle Wit or something like that. He was black, and they said that he was maybe a new cast member on Wild and Out, which I didn't even know that show was still going on, but evidently it is, and evidently he's on it. You could tell he was really young, or younger. I mean, the host was probably in his 60s, and then that first comic looked like he was maybe late 40s, maybe even in his 50s, and then this kid came out and he looked, early mid-20s, and did a really good job. I laughed a lot. I got to be honest, I was a little resentful. Like, I didn't want to like him. I wanted to judge him and be like, oh, he's he was tall and he was good looking and he's young. And, his career is obviously taking off at a young age. He's already on a TV show. That's kind of what happened with Matt Rife. Matt Rife went out to L.A. As a teenager, I think, and got on Wild and Out. And so I remember just thinking, oh, okay, you're just the young, new, hot, ethnic thing, and somehow your career has already progressed to the point to where you're performing at Las Vegas and you have a management team or a representation team who got you on Wild Out and is getting you gigs. And then he ended up being really funny. Not as polished as the older cat. Like he had a lot more like setup punchline type structure, and so he would kind of get into his premise, and then he would build a story, but then it was really funny. All of his jokes went really, really well, and he had some really fun unique takes, which I appreciated. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's got good self-awareness. He's good at throwing himself under the bus. He's staying right in that pocket of being sort of edgy and talking about things that make people uncomfortable, like race and homosexuality. But then he's just doing a really good job. He had a really solid set, never looked nervous once. He also called me out, said the fact that I was alone felt creepy. That hurt my feelings. He just had some really interesting takes. One of them was about homosexuality. He talked about how he has a black homosexual friend, and just had a lot of really fun, unique perspective on that. And then sort of near the end of that premise, he brought it around by saying how he used to hate it when white people would use the excuse that they have a black friend as sort of a deterrent from saying, hey, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. And he goes, I hated that when you white people would do that. Oh, I have a black friend, that doesn't make me racist. And then he goes, but now I have a gay friend, and actually, that's actually a really good defense. That actually really checks out, because people all the time be like, what, are you homophobic? I'd be like, no, I have a gay friend. I mean, that's a really smart take. It's a good reversal. And he did a really good job at those sort of, saying what sort of the controversial thing is, and that everybody would expect him maybe to have as a black person or whatever, and then flipping it right on its head and then making it okay. And so he did a really good job. I laughed a lot at his stuff, even though I didn't want to. He did a good job. And then another actress came out. Her name was Sophie something. Again, I can't remember all of their last names. And she did a good job. She misfired on a couple of things, but she was so likable and very quirky. So she was just someone that you couldn't not like. So even though a couple of her jokes didn't quite land, I think, in the way that maybe she had hoped, she never once ever made us feel like bored or feel like, oh no, is this going to go off the rails? Because it never even got close to going off the rails. It wasn't that. It was I wish I don't even know how to describe her set. She was just so she was from Canada, but she had an accent. It's funny because she almost sounded like Rebel Wilson to me. Actually, she reminded me a lot of Rebel Wilson. She had a similar, she was kind of heavy set, platinum blonde, very beautiful, and accent, and just kind of weird and quirky. Just had a very weird, quirky personality, which I just loved instantly when she started talking about, and just had some really fun nuanced, her humor wasn't, she wasn't beating us over the head with us. She was a lot more nuanced in how she was approaching stuff, and was still very, very funny. And again, I think maybe some of the nuance was missed on us. Maybe that's why. And when I say a couple things, I mean just a few things. I mean, everything she did was really funny. And even the stuff that we're missing, it wasn't like it was swing and miss missing. It was just maybe it didn't get everybody at the audience at the same time. Sophie something. I don't remember her last name. So anyway, that was really fun. And then the last comic, I think his name was Gabe. I think I got his business card. I wonder if I still have it in my pocket or if I took it out. Am I actually going to be able to get the... Oh my gosh, here it is right here. Gabriel Rutledge. This guy. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So funny. So funny. I mean, I just can't even. I can't even. I don't even know. I mean, it was just from the moment he walked on, every line out of his mouth was the funniest thing you heard. And then he just kept doing that for 15 minutes straight. Never dipped once, except when it was like intentionally him maybe giving us a breather by switching premises to something else. And it was just like premise, joke, 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 joke. There was no, I don't know how to describe this other than to say the joke structure was disguised. Like, we didn't actually know we were hearing jokes. We just knew we were hearing the funniest thing we ever heard every 7 to 10 seconds. Talked a lot about his appearance, because you can see he's kind of like a hippie looking guy. And, I think one of his jokes was, you can tell what people think about how you look based off of the questions they ask you, and evidently I look like I have a lighter. I mean, see how fast that is. I think you can tell a lot by how you look based off of the questions people ask you, and based off of the questions people ask, I look like I have a lighter. I mean, boom. And that's how fast he was. But it was nonstop. Like that fast of a joke structure. He was popping out laugh lines every 7 to 10 seconds. And again, was kind of quirky and goofy and so fun. There was no real, you didn't sense any hidden agenda, any sort of, I'm trying to drop truth bombs, or I'm trying to be edgy, or I'm trying to be, something I'm not. It was just, I'm just here to be as funny and goofy and authentic and honest as I can. And I gotta tell you, watching his set, that to me is the standard that I would like to reach. If you've been watching this, you know that yesterday I talked about how I'm starting to work with a mentor, and then I'm really starting to look at pretty much rewriting my whole from ground zero, building up a whole new act. And if I could become as funny as Gabriel Rutledge was for 15 minutes, I mean, just big laughs. Everything was big laugh, high energy, just gut laughter. Said he'd been married for 26 years, and then it's just all of those marriage relationship jokes that were just so funny. Oh, how did he word it? It was something like, I've been married for 26 years. We get along great, but we're also at that point in our marriage to where if one of us came home and the other had left, we'd get it. Yeah, it's like, oh no, none of us be like, what? We'd be like, oh, I get it. That could be for any of a number of very eligible reasons. And by the way, I'm not even doing this justice. But again, see how just fast those jokes were. and those are just like the starting jokes. Like he started there and then went up from there. Just boom, 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 boom. So that was very humbling. I feel like I saw his act, and now I kind of see the top of the mountain, at least the next peak on the mountain that I want to start climbing towards, which is how can I, because that's sort of the energy and the pace that I want. To be that fast, to be that high energy, to be that goofy, that self-aware, and just that funny at that cadence. So we'll see. I've been talking a lot to my buddy Andrew, who is taking me under his wing to mentor me on this process, and we really are starting at ground zero, right? He's just saying, cool, what kind of comic do you want to be? Do you want to be clean and lighthearted? Do you want to be more edgy and subversive? Do you want to be Brian Regan? Do you want to be Bill Burr? And so that's what I am. I'm like starting from the ground up. It's almost kind of like comedy 101. And I don't know yet. I am just really in this stage of transition, stage of starting over, and we'll see what path I want to go. Based off of how I did Monday night. So Monday night, for those of you who follow the podcast, I did an open mic. I ended up going on about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I followed 3 comedians who all just murdered the room. And I ended up going up there and just riffing pretty much based off of what the other comedians had said, because all the other comedians had really talked about hating white people. So I just had to address. So I just addressed for about 10 minutes, just riffed on what it's like being a hated white guy. And that was really, really fun, but it was also very edgy and very honest. And I have been thinking about, would I be able to generate that same level of comedy in a vacuum? That's one of the big challenges of comedy, is it's one thing to riff off of what's happened in a very specific situation. It's another thing to stand in front of a group of strangers who hadn't just watched 3 other comedians talk about hating black people or hating white people. And can I generate that same level of authenticity and that same level of humor just with a blank page in terms of just my interaction with the audience, without having to rely on a common experience or a shared experience with that crowd. So Monday night, we had a shared experience. Everybody had seen those other comedians, and then they saw me go up, and then I had to deal with it. But that energy, the energy at which I was riffing and connecting with that audience, was similar to the energy that Gabriel Rutledge was able to generate in a vacuum. I mean, he could have gone first and he would have been that funny. He could have gone last. He could have followed anybody. He actually could have followed those comics at that open mic and had not had to have piggybacked on their material to be that funny. He could have just come up and just done that exact same act, and he would have been equally as funny. So I have a very long road ahead of me, just as an artist, as a performer and a stand-up comedian. And, you know, I'm in it about 10 years. Andrew actually says that is about the time when a lot of comedians have to start over. He mentions Sebastian Maniscalco, similar thing, had been doing comedy one way, and then about 10 years in, had to rediscover himself, and then he discovered that sort of character and the kind of slow Italian, have you seen these people? And then boom, took off. So it's very daunting, and I'm trying to be enthusiastic and really starting to think through what my comedy moving forward is going to look like, what it's going to feel like, what sort of energy, what sort of pocket that I am going to exist in. And here we go. So that's where I'm at in my dream, in my journey, just the never-ending pursuit of artistic improvement, following the dream, and just never settling, just always looking how to improve, making hard decisions, being willing to let go of what isn't working, or, which is even harder, is being willing to let go of what is working, but maybe letting go of what is working in hopes to create something that will work better. And that's where I'm at. Because, I am kind of funny. I'm pretty good at comedy. I do get booked. I can get on stage. I can, I've headlined. Like, I'm a headlining comedian. I've done 90 minutes. I've done a 2-hour headlining set before. But that 2-hour headlining set was pretty good. But I did not kill. I rarely kill. I almost always do pretty good. And, I have to be willing to let go of pretty good to pretty good most of the time, good some of the time. And then every once in a while, when I'm riffing or improvising, I'll sometimes get into kill status. But I don't think I've ever just totally killed a room for an extended period of time with my material, with my script. So that's my next challenge, everybody. All right. Well, I think I've reiterated the exact same thing about 17 times, so I will call it quits for today. My last day in Vegas, and I'm leaving Las Vegas. Whoa, 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 magic on a Saturday night. Can I just say just kind of a funny little quirky thing that happened? So, I've been in this process of paying off a bunch of credit card debt or moving credit card debt around. And so I had this credit card that I had a zero balance on, and I wanted to get a cash advance and take that cash and pay down another credit card to lower the utilization, just playing the finance game. And I could not get a cash advance on that credit card anywhere in Arizona. And so when I was downstairs on the casino floor, I saw this kiosk that literally said cash advance. And of course, Vegas has a way for you to get cash advance on a credit card because, it's Vegas and they want to get your money any way they possibly can and make it as convenient as possible. So I'm going, I wonder if I could just put this credit card with zero balance in there and get my cash advance. And so I put it in there, I type $1,000, I hit beep, and it just prints out this receipt and it goes, go give this to the cashier or whatever. So I walk over to the cashier and I give her this slip of paper, and she's like, let me see your ID and let me see the credit card. I gave it, handed me $1,000 in cash, and then I immediately took that $1,000 of cash. I went to my bank ATM, deposited the $1,000, and then took that $1,000 and paid $1,000 off the high balance credit card to lower the utilization. I'm probably the only person that has ever gone to Vegas taken a cash advance on a credit card, walked past thousands of gambling machines and blackjack tables and poker tables and slot machines, and then went straight to the ATM to pay off debt. That is the type of loser I am. To date, I have never played a slot machine in Vegas, and every once in a while, I'll look at one, and I was like, hey, this looks like it might, okay, a slot machine, and then I'll, like, look at all of the buttons and, like, where you put, it doesn't even look like you put money in. It looks like you have to go buy, like, it's like a Chuck E. Cheese or like a Dave & Buster's where you have to go buy this other card and then put credits on it and then put and by then I'm just going like, I don't want to do this. I'll just save my money. So I had $1,000 in cash that I could have gambled. I could have gone and put it all on black, but instead I was responsible and went and paid. It's funny to say that I paid down debt because I took out $1,000 of debt to pay down $1,000 of debt. So I didn't even actually pay off debt. I just moved debt around. But anyway, that was my Vegas story. All right, everybody. I love you all so much. I hope your dreams are going well. This is the Paul Green Comedy Podcast, April 4th, 2024, episode 127, my last day in Vegas. And I will talk to you all tomorrow back in Phoenix. I love you all. We'll see you then.